Store-bought corn tortillas taste like dry cardboard, so let's make them fresh from scratch. This recipe comes from Mrs. GTE, and she was quick to point out all the mistakes I made on the test cook. So come along and learn from my fail. Now the recipe for corn tortillas is dead simple. There's only 3 ingredients in it. Number 1 is you're gonna need some masa harina, and the most common one comes from Maseca, at least in the United States. The other 2 you're gonna have on hand, it's some hot water and salt. Now one important thing, don't use cornmeal. It's gotta be masa harina. They're different because this is cooked corn that has been ground up rather than raw corn, and it makes a big difference. So don't get them mixed up. My first fail is not using enough water. The recipe on the back, way too dry. Mrs. GTE says to use a cup of masa harina, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, with a full cup of hot water, and that's more water than the package says. We're going to get in there with our hands and mix it all together and knead it for a few minutes. And it's going to be a little bit sloppy at first, but it'll start to come together pretty quick until it starts to look about like this. You're looking for the consistency of soft cookie dough. And once you have it, you're going to cover it with plastic wrap and let it sit for about 20 minutes so that way it'll rest and be much easier to form. So you know me, I'm always trying to find ways to save you time and money, and that's one of the reasons why you should smash that like button. 2 things here. Number 1, if you're gonna go ahead and put them in enchiladas or fry them up in hard shell tacos, it doesn't make sense to make these from scratch, only when you're gonna eat fresh tacos. Well, the rest of the time, I'm just gonna go to the store. And if you don't wanna make the dough, you can usually find a Hispanic market and they're gonna have the dough already made and you can take it home. It's also a great tip if you're gonna make tamales because it's a huge time saver. While we wait, I'm gonna preheat my stainless steel griddle on the gas grill to surface temperature around 400 degrees. You can use a dry cast iron pan or a carbon steel pan instead. So now it's time to form the tortillas, and the thing that you're gonna need is one of these tortilla presses. Don't try to roll it up by hand, it's gonna stick to everything. This is the key to your success. It's only about $20 online, and I've linked to it just in case you wanna pick one up. You might be able to find it locally too. Grab a golf ball sized chunk and roll it into a ball in your hands before placing it between 2 sheets of plastic. We use a produce bag, but a plastic zipper bag would work just as good too. Then fold a tortilla press over and flatten the dough. After you do a few of these, you'll get the right thickness. One of my fails was doing it way too thin on one side because I'd pressed too hard. You gotta be pretty careful with these or they're gonna break. So you're going to want to gingerly put it on the hot griddle, very slow and very easy, and then let it cook for about 30 seconds. And now here comes another fail. Don't slap the tortillas into the pan. And if you do, it's gonna bubble up and it's not gonna cook evenly and you're gonna have some raw spots on your tortilla. After 30 seconds, the tortillas should move pretty freely on the griddle. Flip them over and cook them for about a minute on the other side before we flip them back over for another 30 seconds or so on the original side. Now I give them a bit of a push with the spatula, which can help them puff up and make them really fantastic. Wrap them up in a towel to stay warm and steam for at least 10 minutes before serving, and that's just enough time to prep the rest of the food. Here's where the griddle comes in handy. You can crank out a bunch where you could only cook one at a time in a pan. Now, I prefer the higher heat and temperature control of the indoor stove, and I almost always cook them inside. This video was requested after watching my last video, Beef Cheek Tacos, and I put it right over here so you can check it out. If you're still at this point in the video, you might as well hit subscribe so you can stay up on all of our barbecue videos.